You know what's poppin', Celtics fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Celtics Chronicle. Today, we're previewing the Celtics versus the Indiana Pacers, which is occurring on Wednesday. Recorded a few days early, just so I can guarantee it's going to be uploaded in time and it's ready to drop for y'all. I'm joined by Alex Golden. Alex has been covering the Pacers probably for about as long as I've been covering the Celtics, actually. I've seen you right. We've been in the similar circles for a while.
hmm
Welcome, Alex. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing all right. The Pacers are 10-33, not playing great basketball this year, but they have been playing a little bit better as of late. So we'll see if that continues to be the trend here for this team. But I'm doing well, Adam. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Waiting for the Celtics to play the Pistons this evening, and then all eyes will be on the Pacers. It's been kind of a juxtaposition, right? Both teams lose their star guy to pretty much the same injury. What it was an Achilles tear on both of them, and the only thing, but it's just been a completely different season for both teams, where Boston's kind of figuring things out. It's been a little bit more tough in Indiana, and part of that's to be expected, right? You guys are a lot younger. There's a lot of experience there now. You've had a few deep postseason runs, but obviously there's just been a different approach in terms of how you guys have handled Halliburton's injury by declaring he wouldn't play all year versus Boston kind of the wait and see approach. How do you feel about this season? Like, did you come in expecting this to be like, hey, we're going to be bottom of the East around about the halfway point, but maybe we'll be able to drag ourselves into playing like range, hopefully with a good run towards the second half of the season? Or was you expecting to be a bit higher up the standings right now?
Yeah, so I'll just be honest with you. I think a lot of people expect the Pacers to be better than what their record indicates right now. And I would have to just say that the reason why the record is so bad as it is, it's not just Halliburton being out. It's not just Myles Turner leaving for Milwaukee. This Pacers team has had 24 different starting lineups this season, and they've had 24 different players on the roster. They have had injury after injury after injury just bite them. First preseason game of the year, TJ McConnell goes down for about a month plus with a hamstring injury. You're already down Tyrese Halliburton, and they had really not brought in a third string point guard to kind of back them up. So it was down to Nembhard. Then Nembhard gets hurt the very first game of the season against the Thunder. Mathurin gets hurt the second game. Toppin gets hurt the third game. Then about 3 weeks later, Aaron Nesmith out for a month. So all of their key rotational guys besides Siakam have been hurt. And so when you add all that up, plus Halliburton being out for the year, plus Turner not being on the roster, you saw guys on 10-day hardship exceptions like a Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Garrison Matthews, those type of players starting in some of these games, and two-way guys starting for the Pacers because they just didn't have capable bodies of going out there and playing. So really it's been a lot of injuries. So the fact that they're 10-33 right now as we're currently speaking, we're recording this on the 19th of January. I just want to say, like, the Pacers are bottom of the NBA for a reason, and it's not because of bad play. It's because they've had so many guys that just are playing bigger roles than they would ever be asked to be played.
Now that people are starting, I know Neesmith's already back, guys are starting to come back. It takes time for them to get a rhythm again. It's never as easy as, hey, you're clear to play, we're injecting you back into the team, and everything's going to work great first time round, right? It's going to take you a few weeks to get some rhythm, to get back into that NBA shape. It doesn't matter if you've been out a week, 6 weeks, there's always that bedding in period again, especially when there's so many dudes that are having to come back in and there's been some chopping and changing. Are you expecting like a second half resurgence, assuming people stay healthy, obviously? Are you
I
expecting a
mean,
second half, or do you kind of want the draft pick at this point?
yeah, I think you have to look at it with the draft pick in mind because it's a rare situation the Pacers have put themselves in to be at the top of the draft order, and right now I think they have the second worst record in the NBA. So pretty good odds for them to land a top 5 pick, which has not been the case for them for the majority of their tenure. I think the last time they had a top 3 pick is all the way back in 1989 when they drafted Rick Smits. So that's how far you have to go back. Benedict Mathurin is their most recent highest pick they've had in a long time at number 6. And so it just kind of shows you like the Pacers usually aren't accustomed to losing or being this bad of a team win-loss record-wise. So I think that's still kind of like in the back of their mind, but they still want to see what they have with this group. I would expect them to win some games, maybe pull out some wins they wouldn't have pulled out earlier this season, but I think you're going to see more rest days like we saw the Pacers do against the Detroit Pistons the other night. They lose 121-78, the lowest scoring game they've had since 2016, because they rested Siakam, Nembhard, Nesmith, all those guys. And you might see that. I know they're trying to really put a big, trying to penalize people for tanking and things like that, trying to put a stop to it, but it ain't going anywhere. the NBA has done a great job of flattening the odds. You don't really have any expectations of what to expect. But I just personally think if you're the Pacers, you want to develop, you want to see what you have with your young guys, but you don't want to be playing Siakam 35 minutes a night for the next 40 plus games, knowing that next year is when it's more important than this year.
That was a conversation Celtics fans had during the offseason as well. And it was a really big topic where it's like, if the Celtics are towards the bottom of the East come like mid-January as we get to the All-Star break, and it's not looking like they're going to be able to turn it around to a point where they'd even be favorites to come out of the first round. Like, even if you got through the plane, are you getting through the first round? Is it worth the additional miles on some of the veterans' legs? Versus, is it worth just not quote unquote shutting it down? Being competitively bad is kind of the way I like to put it. And then you kind of do need to weigh that up, because this year's draft is so deep as well. It's just finding a good balancing point between, hey, we want to give people value for money when they're in the arena, but we also need to focus on how deep are we actually going to go if we try and push for a playoff spot right now. And that's kind of been a really interesting topic of conversation for Celtics fans as the year's gone on, because obviously the narrative flipped for them. And now it's like, hey, could they push to the Eastern Conference Finals? And obviously that narrative has not flipped in the same way for Indiana. But now you're in this really good place where it's really fun trying to do all these deep dives on these potential rookies that could come in and fit. And potentially, you could get a new big man. You could go and find some extra wing depth. There's so many options available to you. Have you already seen Pacers fans kind of deciding which top 10 guys they like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the top three are pretty right up there for like debatable who you want to take. I think Cam Boozer of the three has been the least talked about, just because he plays that small forward position, which is already locked up by Pascal Siakam, and they have Obi Toppin off the bench. So I think fans are less intrigued by a power forward, but if they do somehow land the number 3 pick and he's the guy there on the board, it would probably be dumb not to take him. I know Caleb Wilson is another one that people like a lot as well from North Carolina in that same power forward spot. I've seen some people debate whether they like Boozer or Wilson better for the Pacers, but the two guys that I continue just to go back to are Darren Peterson from Kansas and AJ DeBonsa from BYU. And so BYU, not really the biggest sexy name in school, but you got a 6'8" small forward out there in DeBonsa who could really just give the Pacers that small forward they've needed for a long time. I know Aaron Nesmith has been terrific for them the last handful of years, but he's only 6'5", 6'6". This gives you somebody with an actual legit small forward size to kind of maybe push your ceiling a little bit higher at that spot. And then Darren Peterson might be the best guard we've seen in the draft since 2021. I mean, he might be at that same level as an Anthony Edwards in terms of like how high he is in terms of what people are expecting. If you watch him play, he's pretty smooth. So I'll just say, like, if the Pacers go with DeBanza or Peterson, it's going to be pretty exciting for either of them. If they go Boozer, I think it'll be less exciting, but still exciting. So I think most fans are hoping they lock up one of those top 2 picks, or maybe someone that does lock up one of those top 2 picks takes Boozer and passes on one of those 2 guys. But overall, I just think those are your two big pieces to look at there. And that's what I've seen most Pacer fans excited about. DeBanza probably makes the most sense just because the Pacers are pretty deep at guard and their wing position seems to be in flux a little bit. Aaron Nesmith is like the only one locked up for a long term right now under an extension that he just signed this offseason. So he'll have that extension kick in at the end of this year. But, Benedict Mathurin, restricted free agency, he could be up for trade by the trade deadline, or he could not re-sign in free agency. So that's a big question mark. How do you replace him? Jarris Walker hasn't lived up to the expectations that they probably hope for him, being the 8th overall pick. And then outside of that, you got Johnny Perfe, Ben Shepherd, guys that were into the first, early second round picks that really just have kind of been that exactly and not been that lottery level guy.
Assuming you guys are looking, you just mentioned the trade deadline, assuming you guys are looking to kind of be competitively bad is kind of the way to put it. Are you not expecting any moves at the trade deadline? Do you feel like this is going to be, we retool during the summer, or is there talk that you're looking to try and make at least a ancillary move right now just to add depth?
Yeah, I think at the trade deadline, it really comes down to, can the Pacers find their center of the future at the trade deadline versus the offseason, right? Because we mentioned it, Myles Turner left in free agency. They traded for Jay Huff from the Memphis Grizzlies in the offseason to kind of replace Myles Turner, but Jay Huff's on a minimum deal. He's making around like $2 million, $2 to $3 million a year for the next 3 years, I believe, after this deal. So very nice contract he just signed with Memphis, but they trade him to Indiana. Comes here and he actually started off as the backup big to Isaiah Jackson. And Isaiah Jackson just returned from action because he missed 13 games after the game they played in Boston when Kata hit him in the head with an elbow. Not intentional or anything like that, but it caused him to miss 13 games with a concussion and then to get back into just game shape and things like that. And he's coming off an Achilles tear, and he really hasn't solidified himself either as a starter. So you've got a lot of backup bigs on the Pacers roster, but no answer at that starting center spot. So if they can somehow get ahead of the Benedict Mathurin question that's in front of them and find that long-term center to pair with Halliburton, Siakam, Nembhard, Nesmith, and this draft pick coming up, I think they'll be aggressive in looking at that. But in terms of trying to get wins, I don't think they're going to go out there to try to make wins to help them win now or sell off guys to make them lose more games. I think they're just going to kind of ride it out. But this is a golden opportunity for them to see what's out there for Mathurin before he gets into restricted free agency, where it becomes more challenging to do a sign and trade or potentially have to overpay for him because you don't want to lose the asset for nothing. So I think that listening and taking calls on Mathurin makes the most sense. And it wouldn't surprise me either if they also listen to calls on Jarris Walker or maybe even try to shop him a little bit and see what they can get back in return.
One name that you guys were mentioned on, along with Boston, actually, was Ivica Zubac. Now, I've been really shocked by the amount of Celtics fans that have pushed back on the idea of adding Zubac to Boston. I'm a really big fan of him. I think he's on a very reasonable contract. It's like $18 million a year for the next 3 years. I just think outside of your elite bigs, your Jokic, your Embiid when healthy, which I don't know if you want to class Embiid as elite anymore because he's more time in the hospital than on the floor. But in general, elite bigs. I think Zubac is just below that tier. I think he's one of the more reliable, like non-superstar, non-star bigs. Have you seen any pushback from Pacers fans? Because it doesn't feel like he could keep up with the type of tempo that you guys like to play, the type of pace of play that you run. He'd definitely be with a trail man. I feel like a Nick Claxton prototype might suit you better. But you watch this team way more frequently than I do. You're going to have a better handle on what they need or what they'd be looking for.
Before I answer this, I do want to hear what the Celtics fans are saying in terms of why they're pushing back on Zubac to Boston. I'm just curious what you're hearing from the Celtics world.
And like some people are all in, right? And obviously you're never going to get a genuine consensus when it comes to sports anyway, or anything. One of the pushbacks is just his production doesn't jump out compared to Nemi's in terms of just scoring and rebounding. Now, I do think that Zubac is just a significantly better defender. So that's always been my pushback there. Like if we're looking at box scores, what are we doing? There's impact metrics we need to consider. There's film work we can do. The other aspect of it has been what you would need to give up, because it was one thing talking about Zubac at the beginning of the season when the Clippers were just getting absolutely smoked every night, and now they've turned things around. Kawhi's kind of found his footing. The cost has probably gone up. If you're trying to derail a Clippers season midway through the year, it's going to cost you more than a first-round pick now. It's probably going to have to put somebody in there in the mix as well. So those have been like the primary two. Like, hey, is he really much of a jump up from Neemias Keita? And two, is it worth the draft picks and young guys you're probably going to need to part with to bring him in?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the thing is with this season currently going on, the Clippers owe their pick to the Thunder going all the way back to the Paul George trade. So they have no reason to lose. So for them to trade off one of their best players and their starting center,
exactly,
you're gonna have to give them something, right? Because they have no incentive to lose. So I think that's what makes this whole conversation difficult to have, is just because there's no incentive to lose games. But if he is available, it wouldn't surprise me, just because the Clippers kind of seem like they're in this weird spot right now where they're not really sure what direction they want to go. They're kind of holding on to what they had. They've been playing better as of late, but like it's James Harden, it's Kawhi Leonard. You're talking about a lot of old guys. Brook Lopez is on this team. What direction they want to go? Bradley Beal, obviously, I think he's hurt and out for the season. So they've put all these guys together that are big names that have, they're probably past their prime, and Zubac doesn't really seem to fit that prime with those guys. And so that's a big interesting point there. So if they wanted to go younger, this is where a trade could make sense for both sides of things. But I will say for the Pacers, like the pushback has been, well, he's not a three-point shooter. And everybody is so pigeonholed, in my opinion, or at least the majority of fans are pigeonholed into seeing what this Pacers team did with Myles Turner, who is a stretch big. and feeling like they can't play that way because Pascal needs a stretch big, because Siakam has said that he's used to playing or prefers playing with a stretch big. And he said when he got traded from Toronto that the two players who would want to play with the most are Kevin Durant and Myles Turner because they're stretch bigs. So it's funny you say that, but I think that Zubac is such a great defender. Like, he was an all defensive player 2 years ago, was almost all NBA, can rebound the crap out of the basketball, can score in the low post. I mean, he's a great screener, a great lob threat. I think people kind of forget like how good of a screener he actually is, that he can create space for other people. It's a very great contract, like you mentioned. I think he's making around $18 million the next couple of years. So very, very favorable and very, very good for a guy that's, right there on the edge of being an all NBA, top 15, top 20. So don't know if he's there right now this season, but last year he was so good. And really James Harden made him great. I think that Tyrese Halliburton could make him great for the Pacers. I just think him and Halliburton running that two-man game, it would be just as dynamic or potentially more dynamic than what we saw from him and Myles. But I think it would be a different type of dynamic, right? Just because they're two totally different like players in terms of Zubac and Myles. So I think he'd be really good for this team. The biggest pushback I've heard from people that I trust is Zubac got played off the floor defensively because he can't guard in space, and everything has to be more of a drop coverage when he plays pick and roll coverage defense-wise. So if you're afraid of that and you're afraid of switching everything and him not fitting that role, that's a question you have to ask. But at the end of the day, can you just maybe sub somebody else in if you have to go to that late in the game where maybe he doesn't fit that mold, but it's still really impactful for you for the first 44 minutes of the game? I'm just throwing it out there. You don't want to have a starting center you can't trust in clutch time. I understand that as well. But this is a big league. We're kind of coming back to the big man league, in my opinion. You're seeing a lot more bigs become more established, and teams are playing bigger. Defense is getting more physical. I think Zubac would figure it out depending on what team he goes to. And, I like his fit in Indiana. Do I think he's the best fit for Indiana? Maybe not the overall best, but I think he's up there top 3 for me for sure. So the fans that are pushing back, I understand, but it's a very favorable contract, and he's a really good player. So I think people may be just overthinking this a little bit too much.
I think the way I look at it with the guarding in space, because that's definitely been a conversation I've been a part of as well, both in comment sections and just overall. You can always, I won't say scheme around it, but like depending on the coach you've got in the defensive system you've got, you can cross match and place him over on the weak side, ask him to be more of a weak side roamer. You can set it up to kind of pinch on the wings on penetration and funnel guys towards him in the drop that way. There's schemes and ideas and principles is probably the better word that you can put into place to kind of maximize the effectiveness of what he brings and limit the negatives. And like that's part of coaching as well. Like if you've got a guy that's elite at protecting the rim and deterring shots in the paint, but he cannot guard in space, then you find ways to shrink the space around him and you figure it out from there. I'm big on him. I think that in terms of the Clippers not having a draft pick this year, I actually think that offering them young guys that have already got a year or two experience can kind of somewhat ease the pain of that for them. If you go to as the Pacers and you're like, hey, we'll give you Benedict Mathurin. He's Mathurin on the sides like, yeah, I'll re-sign with you. I'm happy to stay with the Clippers. You're getting a 23-year-old, 24-year-old with multiple years of NBA experience, postseason experience. That is more valuable, even as a rebuilding team, because he's still so far away from being what you'd even class as near his prime. That's so totally beneficial. Boston couldn't do the same with such a young guy on a high level, but they could go there with a Sam Hauser. They could even go there and be like, hey, do you want, we'll give you Josh Minott. I definitely would say no to this, but they could dangle Hugo Gonzalez, who's in his rookie year. That's the same as getting a draft pick. There's ways that you can sweeten the pot and then be like, hey, yes, you're losing your big man, but we're giving you essentially a guarantee, a bigger chance of hitting than what you would get in the lottery. So I think that that's important as well. Outside of him, is there anyone else that Pacers fans are kind of like right now? Yeah, if we can go and get player X, whether it's Claxton, whether it's Daniel Gafford. I know Davon Sharp is someone some Celtics fans are slowly starting to come around on as an idea. I don't know if he's going to fit what you're looking for at the Pacers, but I'm assuming the conversation has been wider than Zubac and Zubac alone.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing a Center of Attention mini-series podcast on Setting the Pace right now. We're going through every single team's centers. Yeah, thank you. It's not like it's already been out there before. So Center of Attention, it's a nice way to kind of look at every team's center depth and what would make sense for the Pacers. I know that there's been some rumblings in Atlanta about Onyeka Okongwu being available. Not sure if he's a long-term fit. I just watched him play against the Milwaukee Bucks, wasn't overly impressed. I feel like sometimes he disappears in games, and so I'm not overly enthused about him, but still would be an upgrade over what they have now. I think Nick Claxton's a good player, but making about $25 million this year. I know his contract is descending, but it would cost you quite a bit to make the salaries match for the Pacers, at least, to make that deal work. So I think I'd be a little bit out on Nick Claxton at this point. Day'Ron Sharp, I think he's making $6.25 million this year, and then $6.25 the next year. It's a team option. So really like that for the contract and what it's worth. I think he's a good player. And when you see him on the floor, like, he is definitely one of the most physical guys on the court. Daniel Gafford is one that I've been a huge fan of, just because I feel like his contract's pretty cheap enough where we can go out there and get him. I think he's only around $14 million before his extension kicks in for the 3 for $54 million that he just signed. So if you could get Daniel Gafford for about $14 million, you could probably trade Jarris Walker and Isaiah Jackson, something along those lines, to get him and still keep Benedict Mather and use that chip for something else later in the offseason. So that to me is a little bit more enticing, just going that route. But I know Walker Kessler is a big name Pacer fans have wanted to target. I don't know how likely it is that, Danny Ainge, someone you guys are very familiar with, would be willing to part with him, especially knowing that their center depth is not the greatest after you look at what he has. But Walker Kessler is really good. And then somebody I'm kind of throwing in as a dark horse, it's the Memphis Grizzlies. They have so many centers on their roster. They're looking at trading John Morant. Depends on who they trade him to. But if for some reason they trade John Morant to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee includes Myles Turner back to Memphis in this deal, so now you've got another center going to Memphis. Could Santi Aldama or Zach Edey become available from Memphis for a guy like Benedict Mather and a package like that? I think it makes some sense. I don't think they would be willing to give up on Edey as much as they would potentially be Aldama. They just signed Aldama to a 3-year extension in the offseason, but I think that's somebody that really fits the Pacers mold and how they want to play, can shoot the basketball. When he started this year, he's averaging around 18 points a game. So this is a guy that can really take another level up. They've obviously got Jaren Jackson Jr. there. Jack Landale's playing really good. So I know I'm all over the place. I've been really diving into all these names here on the podcast, so they're all just fresh of mine. But I just feel like the Memphis Grizzlies are pretty loaded at that spot. And if they were to somehow get a center, whether it's even like a Naj Reid from Minnesota, back in a deal for John Morant, this is where Indiana can maybe jump in and say, hey, let's make this a 3-team deal. Send us somebody like a Santi Aldama. And wow, the Pacers could be really in a good spot next year.
Because that's what it's all about, right? It's just finding a guy like... The good thing about Walker Kessler here, when you mentioned Kessler, was basically he's not playing this year. So you could pick him up and it doesn't change the odds of you guys making it towards a decent draft pick. If you go and pick up Santi Aldama, it's going to take him a month or two to get acclimated with the style of play. You're okay then. You're not going for a guy that's going to be like a top 5 big in the league, top 7 big in the league, where he's going to walk in and instantly start making the impact, where now maybe you have to keep him on a minutes restriction for the rest of the season just so you're losing as many games. So it is tough, but I think Celtics fans are in a similar boat, just because, they lose Kristaps, they lose Al Horford, and then they lost Luke Cornett all in one summer. There's definitely been consistent talks around the big, but I think that the only difference is the 2 backup bigs that the Celtics have been relying on have both stayed healthy, whereas obviously Pacers have had problems everywhere. I do want to touch on just the entire Myles Turner loss during the summer, just because he'd been with you guys so long. I'm really skeptical if we see Milwaukee trade him so soon after picking him up. I think if you waive Damian Lillard and stretch his contract out over 5 years and absorb $25 million a year dead cap onto your salary cap sheet, and then you trade the dude you did that for within the first year, if you're trying to piss off Giannis, that's how you do it, right? If you're trying to lose your superstar guy, that's what you do. So I just want to know, how much of a loss do you actually think Turner's been? I know some Pacers fans are very much oh, well, screw this guy, forget him. And then other Pacers fans were no, he was genuinely good for us when he was especially in the last few years. So what side of the fence are you falling on?
Yeah, I think it was a loss for the Pacers, right? Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it was a loss, but it also shows how Halliburton can elevate somebody, right? When before Halliburton was here, he was a 13-7 kind of guy. Halliburton gets here, he's about 18-7, 18-8. You're thinking, okay, man, this guy's really just starting to reach his ceiling, starting to get there. Then he goes to Milwaukee thinking, oh, I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that. Well, he's averaging around 13-7 again, shooting career worst from the field, from 3, from 2. He just really isn't fitting in there. So I know you mentioned like, yeah, that might piss Giannis off, but like, I'm sure with the production he's putting on the floor, that's not making Giannis happier either. So if it's gonna take, including Myles Turner, to go get Ja Morant, that might excite Giannis a little bit more, knowing that he's got a potential superstar in Ja who could revive his career in Milwaukee versus a guy in Myles Turner who's never going to get much better than what we saw him with the Pacers be. So I understand the fit. It makes a lot of sense because they wanted to get a younger Brook Lopez. But if you watch Doc Rivers, how many times have you seen Myles Turner sitting on the bench to close games and they go with Bobby Portis? I mean, that's just where Myles has been at this year. He's not been at that level that he's worth what they paid to get him. I mean, sure, you do hurt the Pacers. Maybe if you want a little bit of a rivalry jab, that got you something. That got you some points in that. But the production on court has not been worth what you're paying him for, especially considering you had to waive Damian Lillard to make it happen. So the Bucks are 11th in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they're not good. They're not a good basketball team, and they've got this huge cloud hanging over their head of what to do with Giannis. So if they end up trading Giannis in the offseason, which a lot of people are speculating that might be more the case in the trade deadline, then I wouldn't risk anything. If I'm the Bucks, I would try to clean house and try to rebuild from the ground up.
Oh, for sure.
Especially once you trade Giannis. But like, to me, it sounds very clear. Giannis does not want to be the bad guy in the situation. He doesn't want to divorce the Bucks. He wants the Bucks to sign the divorce papers and leave him. But you can tell he's not happy. I mean, during this game against the Hawks that I just watched on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, like Giannis, like he makes a basket to go by 4 points and looks just like he's just done. Like he's just so fed up. And I'm sure he was mad he didn't get a foul call, but like you can just tell, like he is not fully engaged like he once was. He's booing the fans when they're booing their home team because they're down by 30 points at the half without, without Anthony Edwards and without Rudy Gobert. The Timberwolves don't have either of those guys playing. Bucks are down 30, and the crowd's booing him because their performance has been terrible, and he's booing the fans back. I mean, this is a guy clearly that just isn't happy. And so I think we're already past the point of making him upset. He's already upset. But trading Myles Turner, I don't think that's going to upset him too much because Myles Turner has not done much to make the Bucks any better. And honestly, if you look at last year's stats, Brook Lopez was doing better for the Bucks.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't think
joking, like just a bit of a light-hearted joke here. You don't think him and Giannis could be Lego buddies?
I mean, they probably could be Lego buddies, but they don't have to be teammates to do that.
This is true. This is true. You are right about Brook Lopez as well. I mean, Lopez was the pillar of consistency for Milwaukee for a long time, and obviously age is going to always win unless your name's LeBron James. But losing him was definitely a hit. And I just think that one season with a team is really hard to gauge how impactful you're going to be over the years, right? Like sometimes it takes a year before you see the best of somebody. Now, the downside on that is when your superstar's already being linked with a move away and being linked with being frustrated, that year is not available to you. You kind of do need to hit the ground running. But that goes to the rest of it. Like Milwaukee have been throwing shit at the wall for years now, seeing what sticks. And since they lost Drew Holiday, that everything's been in free fall. Anyway, this is about Celtics and Pacers. We can let Milwaukee struggle until one of our teams play Milwaukee and we speak to someone that covers Milwaukee, if they're nice enough to join the show. Now,
I will say that the Pacers play Milwaukee the game after the trade deadline, so that'll be interesting to see who's on the Bucks.
Yeah, you need to speak to somebody and ask them how it's going, man. Because they're going to be having their hairs. Look, I'm slowly getting gray hairs this season. They're going to be starting to get gray hairs. Okay, so I need to ask. Was it an illegal screen?
I mean, yeah, but how many times do we see illegal screens not get called? I mean, it wasn't like it impacted the play completely, right? Because the screen was illegal. They didn't score off that screen. They got the ball to Siakam after the screen was made, and then Siakam did his scoring. So, I appreciate Joe Mazzulla. I thought it was funny that he just said illegal screen for all 6 of his questions that he was asked in the postgame presser. And I like what Rick Carlisle said the next day on the radio station when asked about that. He said, "He'll get over it."
Honestly, man, people that have been covering the Celtics for the Mazzulla era so far, it's just I find him hilarious. I really do. And I know that he wasn't trying to be funny. Like he was probably seething, man. If this was a cartoon, he'd have steam coming out of his ears. His head would be turning red. But seriously, that to me is really funny. And I'm like, I get it. But I think that there's also and I don't know how. I'm definitely keen to get an outsider's perspective here. There's also a segment of the fan base that are you had Jaylen Brown, I wouldn't say bitching, but very vocal about the turnover rate. Sorry, not the turnover, the free throw rate, the calls that Boston are getting. I mean, I did a deep dive a few weeks back. It was last week, actually, where I broke down the Celtics free throws against plus 500 teams versus sub 500 teams. So just to look at the the disparity between the two, because Brown had said it's actually quite significant. So you've got Brown there talking about free throws. You've also had Brown calling out the referees for not calling normal fouls. Then you have Joe Mazzulla doing what he did after the illegal screen. There were a small section of the fan base that felt like the team is becoming a little bit of a sore loser, right? A little bit like they're throwing. I don't know if this is an English saying or if Americans use it too, but kind of like throwing their like toys out of the pram, right? Like really like having a tantrum. And
Yes.
if that's coming from in the house, like inside the Celtics fandom, I'm really curious to see what it's like how they're perceived outside of the fandom.
Yeah, I mean, I think players do it all the time, though, in the league, right? It's not just the Celtics. I mean, everybody complains about things when things don't go their way. I feel like Jaylen Brown has been taking this season a little bit more personal, right? Just some of the comments he's making, like he should have been this player of the month, he should
Yeah.
have been that. I love it. I love that Jaylen Brown standing up for himself, because this was a guy that continuously got overshadowed, and rightfully so, by Jason Tatum, who's a great player. And anybody that said that Jaylen Brown was better than Jason Tatum during that run to the finals, I mean, you're probably wrong. But Jaylen Brown's still really freaking good. And I think sometimes he just felt like he got a little bit overshadowed in that whole discussion. But he wins the Eastern Conference Finals. Did he win the Finals MVP too?
He won both.
He won
Back to
both,
back.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like he's a really good player. And the Pacers in that Eastern Conference Finals a couple of years ago, like they really struggled with him. And I know Jason Tatum did his thing, but Jaylen Brown's a really great player. And I think we're just getting a chance to kind of see it on display as him being the lone guy. And he could probably have his own team and lead that team to a playoff berth. I think that's how talented of a player he is. I mean, it's great to have two of those guys. But even when Jason Tatum comes back, you're still going to need to rely heavily on Jaylen Brown to continue being that number one guy as Jason gets himself, reacclimated with the flow of the game and the speed of the game and just everything that comes with, getting in shape and playing basketball again at a full level. But no, I mean, I personally, I know Joe Mazzulla has always been one that's kind of a crybaby about things. And I don't take it personal. I just know it's him. He's competitive. I think Jaylen Brown maybe is just, kind of absorbing some of that Joe Mazzulla mentality, that personality a little bit. Like, what, we're overlooked. We're under appreciated by the league and they don't give us the calls we deserve. Like, he's a superstar. He can say that kind of stuff, and that kind of stuff has weight to it. So it's probably more of a not political, but kind of political thing to get out there and just put your stance forward in terms of how you feel about a situation. So, I don't look at it as like they're being more egregious than anybody else. If it continues to happen, sure, but at this point, it's still pretty early on that I'm not like overly concerned about it.
That's fair. And I think there's power in that us against them mentality, right? That everybody's out to get us, and the only people we can rely on and trust is the guys within this kind of confine of these walls. I think that Mazzulla's really good at creating that siege mentality with his team. And if that's bleeding through to the press conferences, like the post-game stuff and the pre-game stuff and the post-practice stuff, then it just means that he's doing his job in terms of having his guys prepared for being the type of team that he wants them to be. And that's kind of a really good place for us to kind of wrap things up here and just figure out one more thing. And that's, do you think the Pacers get the win or do you think they lose? Now, obviously, this is kind of a double-edged sword considering everything we've just spoke about regarding draft picks, but you might want to just beat the Celtics. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who says they're not happy to see the Pacers beat the Celtics as a Pacer fan, you're lying to yourself. I mean, the Celtics have been one of those thorns on the side for a while, but I will just put it this way. If Jaylen Brown plays, I think it's going to be much harder for the Pacers to win this game. There's a chance Benedict Mathurin is back by the time we're speaking. I know they said that he might be ready to come back. How will he fit into things? How will he potentially impact things in a negative way? Just trying to get him back into the flow of things. So just throwing all that out there. I think it's in Boston. The last time these two teams played, it was a tale of two halves. Pacers were up huge in the first half in Boston. Then Boston somehow found a way to just hit everything 3-point wise in the second half and win that game. So I think right now it's 2-1. Boston's got the series lead. I would not be surprised if Boston wins on Wednesday night and gets the dub just because they're a much better team. Pacers are struggling and they're playing better, but with Jaylen Brown healthy, like this Celtics team on the road without Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, it took Pascal Siakam a game winner to beat them. So they're a good team, and we'll see. Can Sam Hauser go another like 7 of 9 from 3 against Pacers? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. So Peyton Pritchard's been kicking their butt.
Game.
10 last game.
10 threes last game.
I mean, he's been on fire. I think Peyton Pritchard's been unbelievable. Anthony Simons is really good in the first half. of that game against the Pacers and then kind of cooled off in the second. But Keita and Luka Garza, like they've been holding their own. It's just this is a good team. They play well together, and I think that they're going to get the dub.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Celtics getting the dub too. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm trying to do these previews before every game, so there are going to be times where I have to be realistic and be like, nah, they might lose, and I'm just going to get killed for it in the comments. But that is what it is. Look, man, thank you for jumping on. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure there's going to be people here that want to check in on your center of attention. So where can they find that stuff?
Yeah, Center of Attention. You guys can check it out on Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast. So just type in Setting the Pace, Center of Attention. It should pop up wherever you guys, look for podcast at. And we did cover the Boston Celtics already. That was episode 11. So talked about some of the Celtics bigs there. We kind of gone division by division. So started things out with the Southeast. Then we went to the Southwest, I believe it was. Yeah, Southwest. Then we went to the Atlantic. And now we're currently closing things in on the Northwest Division before we start the Pacific. So a lot of stuff going on, but we're one team a day for the first 30 days of January. So hopefully no trades happen by then, but if they do, we'll cut the series short. But going to end things with the Pacers, obviously, just to kind of look at what we have here versus what the other teams have. But it's been a lot of fun. And as I said, we're recording this on 19, just released the Utah Jazz and talking about Walker Kessler. Portland Trailblazers coming up tomorrow. And then on the 21st, we'll be talking about the Lakers. So a lot of exciting times here, just talking about different centers in the league and what could be out there. And as the Celtics are looking for theirs, they might already found their guy in Keita for the long term. And I think he's a good player. I think he's a good fit.
I was incredibly out on Neemias Keita during the summer. I've had to eat humble pie. I wrote about it. I've spoke about it. I've ate humble pie. I still do not believe he's the guy that you win a championship with as your starting five.
Probably not.
I think he's a guy you win a championship with as your big off the bench, though. I think him coming off the bench, I'm very comfortable there. Again, I still want them to get another 5. That's a total discussion for another day. Alex, thank you so much for jumping on, man. I appreciate you. Everybody make sure you go show Alex some love. And if you're new here and you've got the attention span to reach the entire end of the show, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, do all that good stuff, and we'll catch you soon. Peace.